We are live. What's going on, guys? Back with I do that every time, don't I? Back with Blockchain Buzz. We got Rue in the house. We got Maximus, Cryptomus, Gladius in the house. We got Jesse, KIR Finance. What's going on, guys? How's it going out there?
Nice. Great weather here in Arizona. Hey, I can't complain at all here.
Finally, great weather in Arizona. Oh, suffered for so long. Never again. Never another summer in Phoenix ever again. If I'm down here another summer, it's a scam. A downright scam, I tell you. Right? And future is right. It is not blockchain buzz. It's a black chain buzz with Rue. That's right.
Yep.
And Jesse, of course, right? So you got right the first time.
That's funny. And, the crypto future, they say winter is coming, right? That may be true in more ways than one. We'll see.
Right?
The crypto winter.
Yeah, I just realized something. Is this the first time you met Rue, Jesse?
Yeah.
Well, you're in for a real treat, my friend.
Oh, thank you, brother.
I can tell.
Absolutely.
Already
Just to give you a heads up, Rue, I refer to Jesse as like the Yoda of Jasmine. You know what I mean? It's like the Jedi Council or the Rice Crop Consortium. He's like the Yoda of all that. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So good to see all
a
Yoda.
Yoda phrase. A Yoda
Yeah,
phrase in here.
I'm like Yoda if he's been hiding on the other planet in the swamp.
Right?
Nice. So, how's it been going, guys? As you guys know, I'm back fresh from my trip to Jasmine Labs. Documentary's coming out soon. So, what have you guys been looking at lately? Rue, we'll start with you. What have you been talking about? What's been going on the channel? What is the general sentiment in your community?
The general sentiment is everyone's feeling like it's a bear market. I think if there is a bear market, we can talk about this more later. It's going to be really quick. Everything has seemed to happen quicker. Like this time, Bitcoin hit its high before the halving. Like we continued on, went to 120 something, and I think this bear market will also be short-lived. We got the ETFs and all of that type of stuff going on. But I talk a lot of Zebek in my community, and everybody's very, very happy about the news we're hearing from Zebek. We can get into that more later as well. But yeah, that's what's going on in my community.
Emotionally charged?
They're loving this. Zebek with a new announcement of NatPay and NatPay being directly connected into FedNow. Oh man, people are loving that. And then they had the Dash partnership. People are loving that. Such a legitimate company with Dash. They've been around for a while. Fork of Litecoin. Like that's, you can't argue with that partnership. So a lot of things going on really nicely for Zebek, and I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, they did a lot while I was gone. I got a lot of work to catch up on there. It's like, of course you're going to do all this stuff while I'm gone, right?
Exactly.
That's not new. That's not new though. They're always dropping bombs left and right. So I definitely. Max, what's going on, buddy? How you been doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just trying to enjoy the American Thanksgiving weekend, right? And you're looking pretty fresh and clean. I saw that you got the nice clean look going on. That's nice. One of these days, I'll try to do the same. It'll be such a shock that you guys won't even recognize me, But nonetheless, yeah, on my channel, obviously still covering a lot of the ISO related content. A lot of build up, of course, to the 20th. Some people feel as though it's a nothing burger. I'm still looking into the whole thing of like a full regular work week starting Monday. What happens with that? We'll see, But this integration of ISO 222. Again, it's not just the whole thing of the U.S. mandate, which happened last summer. It's like literally a worldwide mandate. I'm paying close attention to what's going to happen with the digital euro. We've seen a lot of announcements in regard to Christine Lagarde with what she was mentioning as of recently, and the ties to three, in my opinion, the biggest players: Ripple, Quant, and Hedera have led the charge for the digital euro. So is this going to be new liquidity that's going to enter the space, or are we not going to see that in retail? So I'm paying close attention to that. Another thing that's been brought up in my community is the whole thing of the Japan reverse carry trade. Basically, some people asking, is it better to buy just like more XRP than anything else? What are the reasons for that? We break a lot of that down on my Patreon. So shout out to my guys on the Patreon. But the way I look at it is it's kind of like, yeah, in a way, it does seem like that's the thing. Just in my notes, everybody seems to be panic selling, obviously, like BTC. Some people own like full ETH doing the same thing. But, you know, alt bags, is it like a falling knife? Could XRP like dip hard? All these things are worth pointing out. But I have noticed since the great flash crashes, right? There's been multiple ones. You know, even on the Fear and Greed Index, it seems as though we got all the way down to, I believe, a fifth, maybe actually a 12. So we're kind of slowly stair stepping. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like we're almost hitting like 20 or higher. But some people are like, yeah, you need to have some dry powder for, you know, seeing what's on sale. So I have been seeing what's on sale, and I have been loading up on certain ones. Obviously, I hit my Swift coin, you know, goals finally, right? Shout out to all you guys who are in the Swift coin and whatnot. But I don't know. I just think it's getting really interesting. There's some gems obviously out there that are low market cap, but we're all paying attention to pretty much, I would say for the most part, you know, the same thing. Just making sure that things don't get too crazy. But there's a lot of people, man, they're really like they're flipping out. They're going crazy with how the market's going.
Yeah, Swift actually went on a little bit of a run over the last couple of days too. It's been going in beast mode.
Yeah, there was a guy that tagged me and Rue about that. I have to look more into it, but I don't know if it's true or not. I'm gonna try to investigate it more. Did you see that, Rue? About there's some yeah, you do know what I'm talking about in regard to like a whale and a wallet accumulating a lot.
I saw that one guy tagged me and he said CZ of Binance retweeted that Swift blockchain tweeted out that Binance is going to be in some ETF. So CZ tweeted that, but then he had deleted it. But you know, he had the screen proof of CZ retweeting that from Swift blockchain. So very, very interesting. Especially since Swift went on a run, and I think also Binance, BNB went on a run too. So that's very interesting.
I'll look more into that because there is some sites that are specifically designed for when anybody deletes anything. It's kind of like their own ledger to a sense. So maybe we can dig deeper on that. But anyway.
Yep, sounds good.
Jesse, what's up, brother? How you been, man?
Good. Glad to be here. Glad to be back, right? My once a month exorcism here on the channel. I'm glad I'm rejoined you guys. Now, you know, some of the things I've been following, the Bitcoin ETFs, that's kind of a big talking point, right? The outflows from, I think, BlackRock in particular, you know, what's going on there, you know, and depending on who's talking about it, you know, there's almost like two views on this. Like people are nervous because it's coming out of BlackRock, but what they don't realize is it's just BlackRock trading in and out based off whoever their clients are, right? Essentially. So obviously there's some movement there. Maybe some people are thinking that this cycle's over and they're getting out early, whatever. Maybe they're getting on the sideline. Who knows? I know I've seen a little bit with like Michael Saylor and what is it, Strategy, some talk of that and him kind of, is he moving things to cold storage? Is he selling something? You know, he always says he's never selling. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's interesting nonetheless. I try to look at like the bigger kind of global picture and see what's going on. Kind of along those same trend lines, not so much crypto, but does kind of tie into crypto, is the whole talk of like a AI bubble. Is that real? Is it not? I know there's been some talk of people selling their NVIDIA stakes and betting against it. So that's kind of interesting. You know, I can see sort of an angle there that people are trying to put a little fear into the AI side of things, but I don't long term. I don't see that holding up. And then the other thing that someone say something.
I was going to say it's similar to the whole internet bubble, right? People thought that it was going to eventually evaporate.
Yeah,
it's just a change in technology. It's here,
yeah,
here
it is, and I think in the AI space, like you got a lot of people that are wanting to be in AI, but if you talk to these various companies and what they're selling, it's like they don't really have a lot there. And so, is there a lot of like low quality AI and a few high quality AI? Probably, and it's probably like that internet bubble, same deal. So anyway, my other thing I was going to say was JCT, right? The Junction token. I keep hearing about this one over and over again. It seems like it's making a lot of people kind of nervous. Curious what your thoughts are on that. Since you just to talk to the man over there in Japan, this is a pretty big topic, and I just know from covering this in the past that I can kind of understand why it's created and why it's there and the purpose, and it's not supposed to replace or anything like that. But I can equally see kind of, the various other side of the coin, the other people going, hey, wait a minute. Now you got this other coin. How vested are you still in the original? Yeah, you say it's about success, but is it? And, I've often thought lately, I think the biggest risk factor of Jasmy is Hara leaving Jasmy, truthfully. That's kind of the way I see it. So just curious what your thoughts were there.
Well, I mean, I see what you did there. I will drop a breadcrumb for you guys from the upcoming documentary and the footage that the interview that I had with Hara in regards to the Junction token versus Jasmy, because he did go into great detail about breaking down the existence of the Junction token. And one of the little breadcrumbs in the conversation is that actually one of the big reasons that Junction token was created, funnily enough, is that a word? Funny enough. Nope, not a word. Okay. It is now. So was that we all know that Jasmy is stuck in the monitoring zone on Binance, right? And it is a hot topic of conversation throughout the community, has been since 2022. The existence of the Junction token, part of the reason it exists is for that very reason, is to add a decentralized aspect to the ecosystem, so that Junction, this was one of the, when Hara had said a couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but he said that he was at ETH Denver and he met with Binance representatives, and they explained to him what was needed for Junction to be removed from the monitoring, or Jasmy to be removed from the monitoring zone. And he said, I now know what I have to do, and it's on me. And it's something that I can do, right? That was the birth of the Junction token. So Jasmy getting out of the monitoring zone is an effect of the cause of the creation of the Junction token. And then he goes further into detail about breaking down the requirements for Junction and for Jasmy, as I'm sure someone like you knows, but the general people, Jasmy investors who don't do any research, they just hear second token and panic, right? The ecosystem cannot function without both tokens, essentially. And Hara goes into how and why, but they do different things. And that's the biggest takeaway people need to have, is that Junction does not and cannot do what Jasmy does, and vice versa. One is not there to replace the other. The entire ecosystem depends on the existence of both of these tokens, right? Jasmy is now and forever will be the native token of the ecosystem, the utility token of the ecosystem, the gas token of the ecosystem, right? And obviously they're working on even more utility for the token as well. So There is, in my opinion, based on my conversation with Hara about that topic, there is no fear in my heart about Jasmine ceasing to exist or Hara leaving Jasmine to only run Junction. The two are attached at the hip, so to speak.
One of the big things I've been looking at on my channel, and I don't research Jasmine as much as you three gentlemen, but I definitely looked at base and the things that are connected to base. And I think me and Max were having this conversation like one of our various collaborations, and that Junction connects to base. And I look at all the things that connect to base. Quant connects to base with this optimism extension. Metallica's layer 2 connects to it. Ink connects to it. Kraken's layer 2. Binance has a layer 2 with optimism that connects to base. So everything is connecting to base. And I can see why they would want to, because it seems like base is going to connect to, if everybody can connect to base, then everybody can use that as a central hub to get liquidity. And I also think they're going to connect the stock market to it with things like Ondo and things like that. So it could be a centralized point for all of these companies to get liquidity.
Yes, absolutely. Seems like everything wants to connect to base these days, though, right? It is the hot girl at the dance, so to speak, right? So,
well, and also, you brought up optimism, but that's there's a reason that they picked optimism for Junction, and it's probably all those interconnections just like that. And I think what's kind of fascinating about it, I've been talking about this forever with them, is that when Jasmine originally came out, it had no utility. It's just an ERC20 token, there wasn't anything there. There was no use case, right? And they never had the blockchain expert. And as time's gone on, Hara's gotten more and more and more. He's gone further down the rabbit hole. And when he brought on that guy, Burnt, that's the guy in particular that I see as sort of he knows the inner workings of all the blockchain in the background. And with that guy on the team, that's kind of why all these connections are being made now. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Did you just call Bernard Burnt?
I think that's what his name is, right? It's like burn, but with like a T at the end. Burnt.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the T's silent. I might be wrong.
No, I never heard him called Burnt. I always thought it was Bernard.
Bernard.
You're my boy, Bird. You're my boy.
All right.
I can't remember. You made me lose track. I was gonna say something there. Oh yes, another interesting little tidbit was that just before my meeting with Hara, because originally we were supposed to meet at 2:00, and then KJ had contacted me and asked me if he could push the meeting to like 5:00. I said, yeah, that's no problem, whatever, right? And then he messaged me again and said, okay, well, now Hara says 2:00. So then Hara wanted to do it 2:00. I said, okay, no problem, right? We moved the meeting around a couple times. And then when I got to the offices there, I actually learned why. Is because just before my meeting with Hara, he was actually just getting out of a meeting with Panasonic, and he had to go back into another meeting with Panasonic in the evening, so he wasn't going to be home till like 10:00 at night that night, because he was just sitting with Panasonic all day with these meetings and took time between meetings to come and sit down with me for a couple hours. So I was like, that's the first thing he said to me. When we got off the elevator, he actually came out to meet us in person at the elevator, right?
Wow.
And I was already filming, so it's all on footage. And he just explained to me, he's like, I just ran out of a meeting with Panasonic to come and meet you. I'm like, oh, like you didn't have to. I could have waited. You didn't have to do that, right? I have found that he's very courteous, like incredibly courteous, right? Just the amount of times that he contacted me to confirm we were on for this, that, and the other thing, and he had expressed to me how important it was to him that they make sure that they're interacting with the community, and pointed at me and said, like, you are kind of a representative of the community, and it's just as important, he says, that we're open and we're meeting and talking with you guys as it is that we're meeting with and talking with Panasonic and whoever else, right? It all matters, right? So, and that's what's always kind of confused me about the Jasmy community is that I've never seen someone work as hard as Hara does publicly. He does more AMAs and appearances and speeches and all that kind of stuff than almost anybody I've seen. I mean, Charles Hoskinson is very, very active, but that's just on social media, really. Hara's like flying to, you know, South Korea or like Korea. He's flying to Vietnam. He's in East Denver. He's everywhere all the time, right? He was just in Dubai at the beginning of November, and for so many people to scream that there's a lack of transparency, I'm like, I've never seen anyone do so many AMAs in a year and get accused of not being transparent, right? Like, it's absurd. I don't know, Jesse. What are your thoughts? Where do you land on it? Are they transparent? Are they engaged in the community, or do you feel that they could do more? Or
That's a complicated question.
Well, I sent it to you.
Great. And with that, I'm done. I'll see you guys next time.
Oh, lost my internet connection.
Yeah, the connection's going out. Speaking of connections,
I can see you crunkling paper, Jesse.
yeah. It's interesting because he doesn't have to publicly give you a whole lot of anything, to be honest. I mean, this is crypto. I mean, he could give you absolutely nothing if he wanted to. I mean, there's so many cryptocurrencies out there that do exactly that. They give you absolutely nothing. So I think he tries to go above and beyond and share what he can, but at the same time, it is a private business. And then there's also the unique wrinkle of the Keiretsu in Japan and how they're kind of working as a group of companies, behind the scenes. It's like the gear of a clock, that they're all kind of working together on the same thing. And, I mean, obviously, like in the US, we have business partnerships and things like that, but I don't know if it happens in quite the same way that you've got, 2, 3 players, 3, 4 players involved in the same goal all the time, kind of like they do over there. So that's unique. And, I was thinking too, like with the Panasonic thing, I mean, that is kind of crazy. It's kind of telling, right? He's like, hey, Panasonic can wait. I got to go talk to you. I mean, like, what? It's sometimes things like that happen. And, I've always thought there was a bit of a culture barrier with Jasmy and a lot of the global community that has, invested in it and people that have researched it. And it's not an easy thing to overcome. And, for the longest time, I was one of the biggest people harping on they needed a marketing manager or somebody to translate. And, they've steadily kind of got better and better as time's gone on. So you got to give him credit. I mean, he is plotted all along the way. And I think that's what they do more than anything in Japan is they kind of put their head down and they just sort of grind it out and they just kind of keep on going. So I agree with you that I think by all accounts, he seems to be on the right path with everything that he's doing on the blockchain side of things.
Yeah, I think as you and I have discussed many, many times as well, they need that face though. They need that blockchain guy, right? They need that David Schwartz, that Charles Hoskinson, right?
Yeah. Hara doesn't do the Hoskinson YouTube. Hey, it's Wednesday, live from the ranch. I'm back. It's like, come on, Hoskinson, really? And then he's on there. Yeah. And then somebody's like, when are you going to burn ADA? And he's like, oh, the paint chip question. Oh, God. Here we go again.
100%.
Sorry.
You got to love Charles, though. You got to love Charles. Right? he takes everything so personal.
Yeah.
Oh man. Absolutely. So I want to start with you, Rue. What are your thoughts on what direction the market's going to be going in? We need a price prediction. We need a date, and we need to hold your feet to the fire on it.
Okay, so
Internet
if I'm gonna
connections out.
guess here, towards January we have a little pump up. Yeah, always at the end of the year, people are rebalancing their portfolio, and then come into January, they start buying a little bit. Um, when do we get the Clarity Act, or now they changed it to the Markets Infrastructure Bill? Whenever we get that, maybe that's a catalyst as well. But I'm loving all the stuff that
What
I'm
are the
seeing with. Go ahead.
what is the target date on that? Is there any kind of guesstimation going around right now on that market structure bill?
Well, people have said before the end of the year. I mean, I don't see how that can happen. It's Christmas.
Top.
Basically, people are right. People are like gone for the month of December. You know what I mean? In most businesses, so maybe we probably don't get that until January. But I am loving all that I'm seeing with the XRP stuff that's going on. It actually does seem like there may be a supply shock. That was something we were talking about in my open mic night last night. You know, Canary has grabbed some. Who was it? Also Franklin Templeton, I believe. And then you had Evernorth come online where they're putting $1 billion into XRP. They've already done so with the Vivo Power, and some other places have done it. So as far as the Treasury is concerned, so we might actually see an XRP supply shock because BlackRock and Fidelity haven't even gotten XRP ETFs yet. So if they get XRP ETFs on top of that, maybe we see XRP rise and the ISO coins along with them.
Yeah, something I've been covering over the last week or so is there has been a rather large outflow of the Bitcoin and Ethereum spot ETFs, and it's correlating with rather large inflows into the Solana and XRP spot ETFs. So it's not new capital coming in, but we are seeing capital rotation flow from the Ethereum and Bitcoin ETFs into the Solana and XRP ETFs. So I agree with you there. You could see a little bit of a supply shock start to come into. What I would advise people to do is start monitoring the supply of stuff like XRP on centralized exchanges, right, through CryptoQuant or whatever the case might be, whatever website, Glassnode, right? So I agree with you there, man.
Yeah, so I'm really anxious to see how this will impact the price of XRP, and it's clearly obvious that something's going on there. I saw Smoke on All In Crypto podcast, and one of the things he said that I really liked was he's like, you can see with cryptos that have like compliance, maybe we see these cryptos go 1000x, 100x in the in 2026. I could really see that when you think about compliance. It is sort of a way of quote unquote gatekeeping, in that if no other company has these compliances and these compliances are hard to get, then you don't have any other competition. We know Zabek has the MiCA compliance. They've hinted at the ISO compliance. They also have the SOC 2 compliance as well. Metallicus has that as well. That they have it. Stronghold has it. Like, so, at least with those three cryptocurrencies, HBAR and Stellar, of course, and XRP, we know have those. But SHX, Zabek, Metallicus, and its ecosystem, they have these compliances, and maybe we see them 100x within 2026. So
Yeah. Shout out to Kizza, one of my Patreon members there. He was asking me about Stronghold there yesterday, and yeah, I was looking at the charts. It's a fantastic buy right now, in my opinion. Fantastic buy for the long term, though. Long term hold, in my opinion. But
yeah, they just got fully listed on Uphold, and it saw a big price appreciation after that. It was under a cent, and once it got officially listed on Uphold, it went from like 0.008 all the way up to 1.4. Now it's at 1.2, but still a great buy when you consider that 60 billion of it is in escrow. just like
Yeah.
XRP, right? So
People, the thing is with these utility projects, whether it's your strongholds, your ZBEX, your XRPs, whatever the case might be, Jasmy, Junction, right? I think that what gets lost in translation for a lot of people that get indoctrinated into crypto is that these are projects that a person would be acquiring over time to increase their net worth as a long-term hold, right? Because you believe in what the company is doing, you believe in the utility of the project, and you believe in the direction that the project is going in. Too many people come into crypto and they hear, Rue Black say that Stronghold is a good buy right now, and they say, well, shit, that must mean I'm getting rich in a week. And they buy
yep.
it, and then it goes down, and then they're pissed off, right? The complete lack of understanding of how to invest, and the whole reason you invest, the word investing in the first place is not defined as get rich quick, right?
It's funny you mentioned that because I did a video collaboration of Stronghold on the channel. It was me and Max, and then Stronghold was over a penny then, and then it went under a penny, and somebody was like, "Ha ha ha ha! It's under a penny now." And then it's funny because the moment it went back over a penny, somebody replied to that comment and was like, "Well, look at it now; it's over a penny." So I was like, I really appreciated the person who had my back on that one.
Yeah. Fridge, shout out to Fridge here with the super chat. He says, we see sunny perspectives on the cycle being different. I assume you mean so many. It wouldn't be, I won't be selling my crypto anytime soon. I think 2026 will be the biggest blow off top in crypto history ever. Thoughts from the four of you. Let's start with Max on that one.
Well, I'm kind of mixed on that, to be honest, because I do agree that we could very well have, for the first time ever, a delayed 4-year cycle. And we did talk about this, I think, in a Patreon collab a couple weeks ago before you left to Japan.
Yep.
So there is that. And then at the same time, it's always referencing, whether we like it or not, the first ever utility run, because that's never happened before. So what do you really do? Where do you go with that? You can go any way you want to go with it, because it's hard to reference things that haven't happened. And I am kind of prone to believe that we could have a, as you would say, the biggest blow off top in crypto history, but what would it be? And for me, it's, again, back to kind of like what Rue was saying, it's the ones that have compliancy, because even right now, just a few days ago, the whole thing with ISO 222, back to Rue again, the whole thing of Mika. If you guys want to see one example, I was going to use it to compliment both Rob and Rue. It's funny you guys were mentioning the whole thing of specifically like Mika. So actually, I'm going to share this just for a brief moment. It won't take long. People dismiss Mika, and they shouldn't dismiss it, because it's probably the biggest deal out there. Smoke, always awesome with his research. He says, yes, XRP will be covered under Mika as a utility token. It's documented. You blow this up, and it mentions, like, again, the concept of utility tokens. So for one, supporting the tokenization of finance, European regulatory framework created by the Mika regulation. It's Mika connecting to this thing called MIFID2, and then you have what is under the basket of security-based tokens and instruments. But right smack dead center, almost dead center, is what is referred to as the crypto asset issuer and the utility tokens. And then there's this other area of crypto asset service providers, for example, BTC, so on and so forth. But even when we look at things like Quant with Overledger, Gilbert Verdian just dropped it literally, I think, 3-4 days ago. He says, hey, look at this. We are, or I should say, look at Remit. So Remit was Quant's name before it changed to Quant. And he created a framework a long time ago, or I should say, the whole thing of Overledger connecting like Stellar, and he shows this diagram, connects to Stellar, connects to Ripple, connects to BTC, and then it shows all these other altcoins, and that's all under this Mika compliance and so on. dating way, way back before anybody else was even really referencing it. If you go to this other page, people want to see it actually say XRP and not just Ripple, right? That's one of the biggest criticisms that Ripple gets. This source comes from McKinsey, which is one of the biggest consultancy firms out there. In their documentation, they point out these key assumptions. It says, we approach XRP with more of a utility token framework. Our findings are based on calculating the aggregate incremental value of XRP needed to support the value of transactions its network facilitates, assuming adoption of Ripple continues to grow at a relatively rapid pace. I don't see it not doing that. Shout out to our brother, rest in peace, Will Fix. He used to talk about the stair-step theory of XRP. And then this other area, total global cross-border payments. Their assumption, at least McKinsey at the time with Ripple, was 155 trillion in 2018. What stopped that? SEC. So moving forward, when you get further into this, here's the last part. It says here specifically, this token can be used for many things. One example was Ripple, and it says, there was excitement, but it says here, Ripple Net acts as an account, which is more like an interledger bit used for cross-border payments. If you look at Ripple in that context, it's more like a utility coin. It is just for transmitting information. It has the same name. It can do all sorts of different things. Right, cross-border, FX market, on-demand liquidity, the lender of last resort. We ever get into a crazy financial situation where we need a lender of last resort as defined by the IMF, who better to provide that solution. We're not even close to having regulations yet, but then we see other documentation. I came out with it just a few days ago on my channel that it does show we can get this as early as mid-2026, again, if you're MiCA compliant. So does this hold weight? That's up to you to decide, but according to institutions, apparently it does, because it's looking at the risk in the financial system, or the new financial system, breaking away from the traditional banks. So
they always look at the risk. That's what people don't understand. The risk is such a big deal to them, right? Bigger than most people understand. Before I jump over to Jesse and his thoughts on the market, I wanted to kind of show what I think is going to kind of play out here in the near term. So I'm watching, and guys, this is for me. This is why paying attention to the market on a daily basis matters. And I've shielded this concept for 3 years now on this channel, right? It matters on a daily basis. Things can change, as you guys all know, in this market. One tweet on Truth Social from Trump, and that's it, man. The winds of change, they're a blowing, right? And last cycle, who was it? It was Elon Musk last time around, right? This time it's Trump. Like, the littlest things in the macro matter so significantly. What's true today on the charts might not be true 6 months from now, because you just don't know. And with so many people crying that this cycle is different, either this cycle is different, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but I'm going to explain, okay? Either this cycle is very different, or it's exactly the same, right? One of the two. And I know that sounds dumb on its face, but hear me out, right? Now, this cycle could be different in a sense that maybe we do, let me actually go to my chart on TradingView. Maybe what we do is what half the people are claiming, right? We regain the 50 right here, and we continue to work our way up. But in history, every time we've ever dropped below the 50-week moving average on the weekly for Bitcoin, we have inevitably fallen down to the 200-week. And when we drop below the 200-week, just barely below that, usually that's when Bitcoin starts flashing buy signals for a bottom for the bear market, right? So in that case, if that's what happens, if we do end up coming down to the 200-week, well, then that would mean that the 4-year cycle played out exactly as it has every cycle, and Bitcoin topped at $126,000 like last month, right? that would mean that the 4-year cycle played out perfectly, right? Altcoins didn't really get as significant a run as anybody would have anticipated. So in that sense, it's either going to be the same, right? And nobody knows this, nobody knows, or we're going to regain the 50 and we're going to move on to new all-time highs, and it's going to be the first time that that has ever happened, with one exception. One exception. And that would be this here. COVID. Right? C19. We dropped below it in the middle of the cycle, but we bounced off the 200 week, as you can see, and right back above the 50 week, and went on to set new all-time highs. So one time in history that's ever happened, and it was COVID, right? So that's why it's important to be paying attention on a daily basis to what's going on in the markets. And people just, I don't know if they don't want to understand it, or because it's just easier to just assume one thing's going to happen, and if it doesn't, then to blame somebody for it, or not. But the way I see things right now, the way I'm leaning towards things playing out, is, as I'm sure you can see, you have the potential for a head and shoulders pattern here, dropping down to the 200 week, right, on the weekly time frame. That's how I think things are going to play out. I do think we're going to double bottom here. We're going to come back up, put in a right shoulder. The only way to invalidate that, in my opinion, is to start closing weekly candles above $110,500 to invalidate a head and shoulders pattern playing out, right? But I do think we're going to get the bounce. We're due for the bounce. The entire market's oversold as all hell. I believe we're going to get that bounce. And if I go back over to the macro on Binance, I think we're going to double bottom here in the near term, and we're going to come back down, double bottom at about at about 84,775, and then I think we're going to come back up. We're going to fill this CME gap at $96,000, and we're going to come up here, and we're going to try to fill this big CME gap we created between 104 and 110, and then I think that's your second shoulder. I think we're going to fill that gap. We're going to reject off 110,500, and I think we're going to head down, for at least 6-7 months. But that, the fear a lot of people have is that, well, does that mean it's going to be a couple of years of a bear market? No, I don't think so, because that, for me, that would mean, if that's the case, then altcoins have been in the beginning phases of a bear market already since January, right? So they're already well into their bear market, right? So most of them have already fallen 60, 70, 80, 90%. So I don't think it would mean that alts would have an incredible amount of falling left to do. But it would mean Bitcoin bottoming out somewhere probably around 100, somewhere around $50,000. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jesse?
Well,
you're wrong, Rob.
You're wrong, Rob. That's really funny. I kind of agree with what you're saying, in the sense that sometimes I refer to myself as a classical traditionalist, and I believe in history until it's not true, right? So, this cycle has repeated time and time again. Is this time the time that's different? That's a tough question. I think typically markets take off when people have spending money, right? And right now, do a lot of people not have spending money? That's probably true, right? So, I think the inflation of the last couple of years has sort of caught up, and everything's more expensive than it's ever been. You go out for Mexican food and it's like $60 for 2 people. That's insane.
True.
It's kind of like across the board, and you got to think like crypto. especially when this thing was heating up. People are throwing money in there every day, disposable income, you name it, right? So do you have a lot of disposable income right now? I don't know, and it seems like buying power's gone down. It's getting harder for people to buy the basic things. Like I've kind of for a long time thought that, there's the future will be rented, right? Like at some point, the generations in the future, they're just going to rent everything. No one's going to own a single thing, because it'll all be in the hands of, the owner class, let's say, whatever that is. But ironically enough, when you're talking about Bitcoin, I've got a Bitcoin chart that I made, and it looks like I must have made this in 2024. That kind of tracked everything. I don't know if I can share this. Let me see here. Hold on one second.
Rusty.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty here. Hold on. Where's my chart?
Almost as green as Rue.
I was about to say, it's usually me.
I knew that was going to
Jesse,
happen.
so-
I knew that was going to come out. I was like, he's
There
going
it
to say
is.
that. He's going to say it, and he said it.
All right, can you see this?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can see it.
Okay. So, obviously I haven't updated this recently, but here's what it was basically halfway through 24. And at the time I was kind of looking at, just slicing and dicing Bitcoin historically, because, whether you want to believe it or not, Bitcoin is like the moon that influences the tides, right? So it's going to influence the whole market, whether it's going up or down. And historically, I mean, this is kind of how it's looked. And so if you think about 26 basically being down here, that theoretically should be a red year if it follows everything historically like it's always done. Now, that being said, would January or February be a red month? The odds are against that. So the odds are that it'll be a good month. March historically is kind of a bad month, right? You can see the kind of historical bad months are March, August, September. There's a few in the middle, and then there's let's say, what is this, six good ones sprinkled throughout. So I don't know. I tend to believe that I'm still going to follow it historically. I think this is true to an extent that I think we're in a recession if it wasn't for AI and, a few companies that have just been kind of killing it nonstop. We're in a recession. You want to believe that crypto's decoupled. It's not. It still ties, directly in, even though theoretically it shouldn't, but it does. And so, you've got this market that is kind of closely tied to the stock market that we don't really know what's going on right now. I don't see it being positive. So maybe that's a little doom and gloom. But, that being said, again, if you're looking at the yearlies, if it is a down year, the yearly drop isn't going to be that large in comparison. So I tend to think that it will still likely be a down year overall for Bitcoin until it rebounds. I agree with you that it's got to find a bottom. I don't think we've seen that yet. And right now, it just kind of makes me personally kind of nervous, the instability overall. So the instability of the tariffs and what all that has brought to all of the financial markets. I think everybody's looking for safe havens, and so maybe the latest safe haven is, like you said, a little bit of reshuffling from Bitcoin over to Solana or to, XRP. Maybe that's true. But overall, I tend to think it's a downward year, unless I'm proven wrong. And I'd love to be wrong, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We could have a green first quarter followed by just a down year the rest of the year, and that would still play out to be a fairly red year. There's so many wild cards out there for the first two quarters of next year. One of which is, I mean, we know that they're officially going to stop quantitative tightening December 1st, right? Now, a lot of people are confused the ending of quantitative tightening does not necessarily mean the beginning of quantitative easing, right? There is a pause in between, and we can't just assume that because quantitative tightening is ending, that automatically means that quantitative easing is beginning, right? I think we would have to wait for some sort of an announcement or signal from the Fed for that. First of all, we have a replacement for Powell in May, right, over at the Fed as well. And you know that Trump's going to throw someone in there that, I mean, geez, I just read today, just before this stream started, Trump is demanding another 3 or 4 point cut all the way down to 1% by the Fed, right? So we know what his agenda is in May. Is he going to put somebody in there that's going to do their best to comply with that 1% target? And is that going to be devastating to inflation? As a lot of concerns, a lot of, how would traditional markets and smart money respond to a sudden slash to 1% in rates? I think that would cause a lot of fear from big money and uncertainty for them to kind of pull out of everything and wait to see where the smoke settles on something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And another thing that's worth mentioning is Bitcoin and retirement accounts. I want to say that Trump tried to push for that at least 6 months ago. And I know I've never seen it in any of my retirement accounts. Nothing, not a peep. So that hasn't even happened yet, right? So that's a $40 trillion market that's sort of outside looking in, So could something like that finally kick down the door? Could some crypto legislation turn things back on? The funny thing with the crypto is we're always down in the dumps until all of a sudden one day it just clicks and we're back, and you can just feel it, right? And
We're still back.
Yeah, exactly. We're not back yet, but hopefully we're back soon. I know, I don't know about you guys, but I've been looking at all my accounts, all year long, and I'm like, come on, man, come on, give me something here, give me something to work with, anything, and hopefully there's something around the corner. I can't think that we're going to be down in the dumps forever.
Well,
no,
everybody's doom and gloom, and I'm not. I'm not. I have 4 reasons why. About 4 reasons. So these ETFs, all these different ETFs are coming. I think an HBAR one has already come. XRP ones have come. Litecoin, Solana. I hear there's a Flare one on the way. All these ETFs. That's one reason. The other reason is we say that the patterns have been the same, but they haven't. Bitcoin hit its all-time high before the halving this year. So that's a lot of a reason for me to think if we do have a bear market, it'll be quick. Maybe no further than March. There might be a little bitty dead cat bounce in January, but after March is done. 3, which kind of jumps on the back of what Jesse said, people don't have any money, but Trump talked about dividend payments, right? Dividend payments coming in 2026.
Checks in the mail.
Yeah, there we go. From
Whose mail? We don't know yet.
But hey, maybe those can actually be stablecoin payments. Because technically, I think they signed a law where they can't issue checks from the government anymore. So maybe those are actually stablecoin payments in which we inject 300 million users into the crypto market, fresh new money, like what happened back in the day when they issued the stimulus checks before, and a lot of that money went into crypto. So that would be my 3rd reason, and the 4th reason would be treasuries, and also again to what you were saying, Jesse, if you got retirement funds where the law actually does change, where these retirement funds can invest there, we see that all these different treasuries. I know one treasury said they were doing Litecoin, Another one said they were doing Doge. Remember that one, Rob?
That
Um,
one didn't turn out so
that
well.
one didn't work so well. but but you know, Vivo Power with XRP. So all these different treasuries. You know, so the treasuries, the ETFs, the dividend payments. I think all of that can line up to 2026 being powerful. And there's one other thing that I hear. This was in one of the videos I covered from like Zero Hash, in which they mentioned that the Genius Act kind of made it easier for foreign investors to invest in the American stock market. And you can see that also with some of the rules that Ondo put out in the tokenization of how Ondo's doing the stock market. They're basically allowing foreign investors that are in credit, that are like accredited, their version of accredited investors, to invest in those tokens first. So in the creating of these ETFs, say they're offered on Ondo, and then now foreign investors have 24-hour access to these ETFs through the stock market. I mean, I think there's a lot of recipe for 2026 to be really grand.
Nice. Yeah, there was two things I wanted to respond to what Jesse had mentioned about the pensions. Funny you say that because my father actually, we've had many conversations. He started getting into spot Bitcoin ETFs and stuff like that about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, right? And so he's really started to engage a lot when it comes to crypto, and like he follows the channel and stuff like that, and we talk all the time. And he likes stuff like Ondo and Pith and stuff like that as well as me. But it's funny you mentioned the pensions because even like so from his generation, using him as an example, he just doesn't see the point in investing in an RRSP as opposed to a spot Bitcoin ETF instead, where your money is just going to grow that much faster. In fact, technically, you could say that it would grow not even faster. It would grow, period, because you're putting money fiat into an RRSP that continues to decrease in value as the government continues to print money. They're actually moving in opposite directions, right? Your pension's not sitting here and Bitcoin's here. It's actually like this, right? So people from his generation are starting to wake up to that, and maybe that flow out of pensions will start to happen into these Bitcoin ETFs, which may cause them to start offering these spot ETFs in the pensions and stuff like that, or Bitcoin period, to stop the outflow into pensions. Does that make sense? That might end up affecting them, right?
Yeah.
So people are waking up to the value. But in terms of the market, though, I have to agree with what you said there, Rue. Is that, and I really want people to take what I'm about to say to heart. I can't explain why, but I don't. This is one of the most bullish I've felt in a long time on the markets, just in general, on crypto and everything. Like I'm almost giddy with excitement about moving forward. Maybe it's all of the uncertainty and the potential for the direction we could move in. I don't know, right? But I definitely have an extreme level of just bullishness about the future of this asset class. And I'm excited every day. I'm DCAing and I'm excited, right? So, how about you,
And
Max? Oh, go ahead.
I know everybody always says that this time is different, but this time is actually different in that right? This time is actually different in that there's legal it's legal now. Like there are actual hedge funds here. It's legal now. Like what we always thought would be a problem for crypto is actually a positive. It's legal now, and that hedge fund money, like the actual diamond hand money, can come into cryptocurrency and just sit there, and things can gain a higher floor, higher floor. In fact, I think like I saw somewhere that like Texas was investing like some money into Bitcoin. I don't know if it was 10 billion or 10 million or something like that, but apparently they're doing it. I know different state treasuries have said that they're investing in Bitcoin, and that continues to be more and more. So we didn't have any of this in 2021, right? We didn't
No,
have any
you're
ETFs in 2021, right?
you're
So,
absolutely.
in this time, I really do think it's different.
Fridge, shout out to Fridge for another super chat. It says quantitative easing, new Fed chair, Trump being all in on crypto. I don't see a real full bear market in 2026. Not to mention midterm stimulus checks. Yes, you're absolutely right. I forgot to mention midterms. Right? Do you really think that the Republicans can afford to have the markets looking like they do right now, going up into midterms? Of course not. They need markets looking green and prosperous way before midterms come around. You're absolutely right. So I would agree with that. And then Salamander says, I'm just buying more. Everything's on special. Please buy more ZBEC. There you go. Driving around in the old classic Enterprise in his picture, right? little, what's his name from Quantum Leap? What's that actor's name? You guys probably don't
Scott
remember.
Bakula.
Yes, played the captain of Star Trek Enterprise, right?
Yeah,
The old
yeah.
adventure. There you go.
Ziggy by half I leaped.
Oh boy. What do you think, Max? How you feeling on the markets, brother? Are you ready to pack it in? Scam?
Well, back to what Rue was saying about the whole thing of, it may seem like it's different going into what would be legal. I'll tell you this, when everything is legal, it's just like, oh man, throw up a like an animated GIF of like Brad Garlinghouse as Val Kilmer, in Tombstone as Doc Holliday, and then have have Gary Gensler as Johnny Ringo, and then it's like that old scene, and then they're at that old oak, and Garlinghouse looking at Gensler, and he's just like, "I beg to differ, sir." He said, "Play for blood, remember?" And then he's just like, "But this time, it's legal." And he shows his badge, and it's like a Ripple badge, you know what I mean? And then it shows Gensler, and he's just like, I was just messing." And then he looks right back, and he's like, "I wasn't." And then boom, on-demand liquidity, and it's like all this stuff flowing all over the place, That's the way I kind of look at it. It's like it'd be something monumental like that, but maybe it's really this simple if you guys think about it. Maybe, I see all the points you guys are sharing. I see what Rue's mentioned. I see what Jesse's mentioned. Same with you, Rob. I look at it like literally maybe it's just this simple, like just cut right to, and that is, it's a continuation of that cycle because there's nothing really that has disrupted it yet because we're not at that legal point yet. We could talk about everything being legalized, but we're not there yet. So that disruption as far as these liquidity pools, these dominant liquidity pools, like 80% BTC, the other percentages with ETH. So isn't it still like 81, 82% is still BTC and ETH? So in reality, there's some other ones that kind of somewhat disrupted that, but I mean, I'm still looking at it from the perspective of if you have a giant deep end and it still represents in that pool of liquidity, BTC and ETH, and somebody comes in with a bathtub, oh, here's some of your XRP, we'll throw another bathtub of this, and somebody's like, throw a little salon on this. Is it really disrupting what you're seeing in that deep end? No, not really. But what would be disrupted is, again, back to what Rue was saying, things become legal. And until we get to that point where we have, as the saying goes, I know people get tired of it, that legal clarity, it won't be disrupted yet. We can talk about all these what ifs, but I honestly think it might just be that cut and dry. And am I rooting for you till you run? Of course I am. But I'm also looking at it from the perspective, and I know you guys do it too. All right, what's on sale? What did I not hit my goals of? What can I accumulate more? And I just look at it as like it's blessings in disguise because, I mean, come on, man. Has there ever been a moment in history where we have never seen innovation win? Innovation always wins. Now, some people will say, well, that's not true. Look at, Nikola Tesla. If his innovation wins, then, you'd be wrong. Okay, that's a good example. But I'm talking about for the most part when it comes to the big conglomerates. The big conglomerates are now on board with some of this stuff. I mean, come on. How long did we see Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan saying crypto's a pet rock? How many times did we see Larry Fink in the past saying like they would never get behind any of this stuff? And then what do you see? Yeah, they're behind this stuff. And then again, back to Larry Fink again. Is there going to be an XRP ETF? He doesn't give a flat no. He doesn't give a flat yes. And why is that? Well, look into Ripple. They have 1,700 NDAs. So I would imagine BlackRock will be part of that. Recently, as of about a month ago, we saw basically, was it Quant Network collaborated with BlackRock and Finality? Oh no, the competition. You know what I mean? They collaborate with the competition and so on. So there's that. And again, countless examples that they are prepared for not Bitcoin just being a hedge against inflation, but they realize things like with Ripple because it's a hedge against what? Money printing. We're trying to get away from the money printing. And again, now even Trump is getting apparently a new guy in office, out with the old with Jerome Powell and so on. So where do we go from here? Well, that's the whole thing. I think we know where we're going from here. As far as it's going to be early, mid 2026, we'll have to wait and find out. But not all my bags are packed. I'll be honest. A lot of it is. But I mean, I'm not the only person. And so I look at if Ruth says, hey, man, there's this new thing I'm looking into, and it's got this connection, that connection, same with you. I'm going to pay attention to those things. But at the same time, I'm also going to say, okay, look, take a step back. What have I not hit my goals in? Am I thinned out in a certain area? Do I need to stack more of that or just be thinned out on everything? I don't want anybody. It doesn't matter if it's things I'm covering. It doesn't matter if it's things that Ruth's covering, so on and so forth. Do not be thinned out on any of it. If you are convicted in your research about a certain thing because you see where it's going to go long term, because hey, this is going to do 100x compared to this project's going to do 10x, then make sure you stack that when it's the right time to do so. But never, ever buy the top of the mountain on anything. And we know that for the most part, hopefully.
Yeah, you have two different types of people who get into crypto, in my opinion. People who want to get rich and people who want to get wealthy, right? People who want to get rich think they're going to get rich in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and
Right.
even if they do, because it was effortlessly earned, it will also be effortlessly spent. Rich people are usually broke again in a year. You see it with the lottery all the time. You have to be ready mentally and emotionally to be wealthy. Otherwise, you're just rich and then you're broke again in a year. Because what do? The first thing you do, you go out and buy everything you've ever wanted, and then you got no capital left, and you've got all these liabilities, right? So
Yeah.
wealthy people understand that you're getting into a space like this, and you're trying to, like I said before, build your net worth over time. I've often said to people, if you're getting into crypto and wanting to get wealthy, your time horizon should be 8 years, 2 full cycles. It should not be 6 months to a year. I don't know anybody who became a multimillionaire starting with average amount of money your average investor has to put in and became a multimillionaire in one cycle, let alone 1 year, right? I think even the likes of BitBoy and stuff like that was saying, I remember him saying multiple times, took him 8 years to make his first $1 million in crypto, and he was scamming left and right and center, right? So, getting all kinds of, money to shill projects that rugged, and, not that he controls those projects. I'm just saying, even the likes of people who had that level of hustle took them 8 years to make $1 million in crypto, right? That's his words, right? Same thing for me. It took me 2 cycles, right? I don't know. I don't know anybody who was able to retire themselves from a year in crypto, right?
And I just want to reinforce where we are with some of this legally, guys. And I agree with you, Rob. It takes time. It takes 8 years. You know what I mean? It takes time. But understand where we are legally in that the Ripple case is actually officially over. The president and the first lady have their own meme coin. The president has his own crypto hedge fund, DJT. He has his own crypto DeFi company, World Liberty Financial, right? They're are companies publicly traded on the stock market that have like crypto treasuries, Vivo Power, other companies like that. You know, they're crypto ETFs officially on Nasdaq, where they were regulated, or they were pushed to the OTC with Grayscale like in 2021, but now they're actually on the official American stock market. Like there are crypto lending firms out there like Salt, where you can lend Bitcoin and you know, do different things like as a credit investor and earn yield from your Bitcoin. So like, which we couldn't have that. We could not have that in the previous American regime, right?
Well,
So
if you could go back to 2019 and tell yourself back then that all of this stuff was going to be happening, because we did talk about those things back then, and it was a laughable joke, right? Like we're
exactly.
ever going to get a Bitcoin ETF, or like we're ever going to get adoption in crypto, like we're ever going to get regulations, and like we're like, let alone the president having his own meme coin, right? Like all of these things, if you had mentioned them in 2019, 2020, it would have been a limerick. It would have been like an inside joke for crypto people, like because it's so unrealistically, to imagine.
Laughable.
Yeah.
Laughable. And now PayPal has its own stablecoin. Oh,
Yes.
banks don't want to use crypto. They're never going to touch it. PayPal has their own stablecoin. Fiserv has their own stablecoin. Metallicus has the first stablecoin with the credit union, St. Cloud. Like, this is an entirely new crypto world that we're in right now. And this is kind of why I feel like 2026 has the possibility to do the 100,000x like Smoke was talking about.
Yeah, we also went from banks doing everything they could lobbying against crypto being allowed to exist to now fighting to be able to custody it for their customers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%.
And for me, the sticking point, one of the things that makes me the maddest in crypto, period, is banks fighting the Genius Act because exchanges can offer a higher yield on stablecoins, right? They're not fighting to be allowed to offer the same yield, let's say 5% or something like that, or 7%. I think right now some of them are offering, right? I guess it depends, but whatever, you get the point, right? Instead of banks fighting to be allowed to offer the same yield as the crypto exchanges like Coinbase, they're fighting to lower the yield that exchanges can offer. That way they don't have to give, they don't want to say they say we want fair. Okay, then offer the same 5, 6, 7%. No. We only want them to offer 1%. That's a big middle finger to your customers if I've ever seen one, right?
100%.
So that's infuriating to me. For me, represents that one little thing represents the position that the banks have when it comes to their customers and what their priorities are, right? I mean, we know that they should want to make money like every business, but come on, right? You talk about, you can't say that and use the word fair in the same sentence, right? So, yeah. Well, we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. Let's go around and give everybody's final thoughts there. Jesse, what do you got for us, buddy? You got any final thoughts for the market moving forward? Any positive, go get them, this kind of stuff?
Why, yes, Rob, I do. So I've been feverishly scribbling some notes here of some different talking points, and I guess I'll pose these to the group in no particular order. First item, and these aren't necessarily related, but first item, the market share hurdle. Max, you kind of brought this up with Bitcoin and ETH taking up so much of the market, right? And how hard it is for new players in this space to get any kind of foothold. That's the thing that's kind of unique about crypto, right? Like I like to think about it like it's the stock market 200 years ago. Like that's how early we are. But at the same time, you know, we've kind of got like these two major players, and then there's sort of like a smattering of everyone else in the top 10 to, let's say, the next 10 to 20, and then kind of everybody after that, you know. So it's tough, right? It really is for some of these various blockchain projects to stick around. I think it's tough. And that's one thing that I'm starting to see is in some of them that I reviewed years ago, that by all accounts were legit. They had everything going for them. They were doing all the right things. And now today it's like it's this floundering skeleton of, you know, you're kind of hoping they'll pull a rabbit out of the hat here somehow, or stay around, or stay relevant, or adapt. You know, it's kind of like an adapt or die with some of them. And I find that a little challenging, you know. I mean, I get it why Bitcoin is the moon. I understand that. But ETH, you know, I mean, ETH, gosh, juggernaut that ETH is. I mean, nobody can take it down, even with all of the ETH's shortfalls. I mean, years ago, all the different shortfalls, and it's still going strong. And I think it's really hard for some of these others to get a foothold. Now, that being said, if we had a huge influx of, you know, more fiat coming into this ecosystem, could there be some more players to come about? Yes. And so I think one of the things that I would like to see is more real world companies that use crypto. And I think this is a thing that if you asked any of the major players in crypto, they would say yes. Like we want to see banking institutions using crypto. We want to see insurance companies using crypto. We want to see real estate brokerages, you know, using NFTs. I want to see real companies doing it, you know, and real companies that actually have longevity and can actually withstand, you know, these kind of ups and downs of the roller coaster, right? I think that would be pretty awesome if we could see that. Now, in terms of, you know, some other things in the market as of late, it just kills me every time the leverage traders get wiped out. I mean, they're like this sad group of like people that are just like trying, like they're like this, like you know, Rob, you said it earlier, you know, it's like that group of people that they're like, this is my year, I'm gonna come out big, and they leverage trade and they get wiped out in like 2.5 weeks, and they're like, all right, it's all gone, I'm done.
Scam.
The leverage trade. I feel bad for the leverage traders. I do. You know, it's the constant Bugs Bunny with the carrot, that they're following the carrot, and every time they get wiped out, whether it's up or down on leverage trading. And you know, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this space, and like you see it really bad on X in particular, where you see these people kind of like they show you what's going on in front of the curtain. Yeah, I just leverage traded all this, whatever. You're not seeing what's going on behind the curtain. There's a lot of sleight of hand here in that whole leverage space. So maybe it's good short term, but long term, I don't know.
I think that the biggest problem with people getting wiped out in leverage trading is that most people that do it, they don't know. You have to be able to foresee, you know, you have to be able to read the writing on the walls, I suppose. And what I mean by that is when you've got 18-19 billion dollars in shorts built up, and you've got 3 billion in longs built up, maybe don't put a short in, right? Because you know you're looking at a market that is not functioning on good actors. These exchanges, like, I don't know, Binance, just putting that out there, will deliberately manipulate things and to wipe you out. Especially when you get 18-19 billion dollars in shorts built up, you might not want to join that party, right?
Yeah. All the major exchanges have a quant firm that's active in the space. They all do, and so yeah, I agree with you. You know, I remember seeing a video. This is years ago, where somebody was breaking down one of the drops, and in that particular video, he was showing how, you know, it's like you can see the kind of the market psychology of just a regular drop. It's regular, and then you can see they absolutely drop the bottom out and they snap it like a rubber band just to make sure they've liquidated everybody. And that still happens constantly. I mean, it's just nonstop, and it'll continue to happen. I mean, as long as it's legal. So I think all I'm saying there is that I'd like to see more investors and less gamblers on the leverage side. But one last thing here on the real world adoption front, and this is probably more of a positive one. So I'll put this out there. Is I don't know if any of you other guys do this or not, but I do. I've got the Coinbase One card. Do you have this? Anybody?
No, I've heard of it.
Okay.
Heard of it.
Yeah. So basically, if you're, and I'm not plugging this by any means, I don't have a referral code. I'm just talking about it. The Coinbase One, if you're in Coinbase One, it's basically like their monthly account where you don't have to pay the trading fees per trade. And so if you're doing a lot of daily buys and all that, great, it's worth it. Okay. So I've been in that for a while. Now, the interesting thing is they've been talking about this Coinbase One card rewarding you in a Bitcoin reward versus, your other typical credit cards give you, airline miles, points, whatever. Well, this one gets you returns in Bitcoin. So I applied for that and got it, and I've been using it ever since. So I think it's pretty cool. I mean, let me just say the card itself has the Genesis block etched on the front of it. It's like a stainless steel card. It's really cool. And I mean, it's the best visually looking card that I've got in my whole wallet, no question. And so what I like about it is, obviously Bitcoin, ebbs and flows up and down, but in the long run, I'm going to keep using that card and I'm going to keep getting my returns and my Bitcoin returns on that. Versus these other things that, like you were talking about, your buying power, your fiats plummeting in value. I'd rather be getting those returns of Bitcoin over time. And so I think that's really cool that they did that. And that card is a partnership with Amex. And so it's the first of its kind. I mean, I don't think I take that back. I think crypto.com has some sort of card as well, but the Coinbase one is a little bit different with the Amex partnership and the Bitcoin rewards. So I think that's really cool. And that's light years ahead of where we were like 5 years ago. So I'll leave it at that.
I would love to get rewards in an appreciating asset for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think, Max? I see you got something to share here.
Oh, I just wanted to kind of, share something that's been happening. We talk about things that are light years ahead. We talk about things that, like we never saw this again. Back to Jesse, 5 years ago. So as we speak, you now see things like this. I mean, again, Larry Fink was talking about some of this stuff where you see real world assets being tokenized, and even on CMC, just to see things like Tesla literally have listings. And then you can go to, some of the traditional, I should say traditional, but like traditional for us, right? Crypto exchanges, Kraken. As far as decentralized, you can go to like Uniswap, Gate.io, MEXC, heck, even through DEXs like PancakeSwap through the Trust Wallet. You name it, right? You can get things like Tesla. I mean, who would have ever thought? And this is all finally happening, and it's been happening for a while. And again, back to what Jesse was talking about, whether it's the Coinbase One card and so on. I mean, we are truly light years ahead from that perspective. And it's also funny that you mentioned the whole thing about rewards. I don't know if he's still watching, but I'm gonna give a shout out to Mike C. Our buddy Mike Rue, aka Elon Muff. He was talking to me, I think it was like kind of yesterday evening. He was talking about Metal Pay with Metallicus and whatnot. And he was like, man, you really need to look more into the whole thing because, getting rewards for staking that, talking about like, I guess you just touched base on it, Jesse, about like, and even you, Rob, about it in like an appreciating asset. So it's like, I don't know what part it was, Rue, that you were talking about. Stable coins. Yeah, you were the one talking about this early in the outline about moving forward in 2026, like, would it be stable coins that would really stand out? And I was talking to Mike. I said, well, moving forward, wouldn't it be like Ripple with RLUSD for stable coins? And then he was looking at from the perspective of like, yeah, but look at where the US dollar is right now and look at what the metal dollar is looking to do. And I thought, you know what, that makes sense with what you're talking about. And they have this token, obviously, a rewards token where, you just you stake up or lock up some of that metal, you earn a yield, and yeah, you got to lock it in there for a bit. But again, back to this whole concept of earning yields, earning these rewards. Again, Coinbase One is a lot more. I guess you could say more people identify with that, but I'm just also looking at it from the perspective of just finding a low cap gem that actually may do some things that is tied to things like, FedNow and whatnot. They're literally in that FedNow showcase. So I'm sure you have some closing thoughts, Rue, that you want to get into. But I mean, Jesse is right. We're seeing all these things that didn't seem like they were going to come to fruition. We see them now, light years away from where they were.
Absolutely. And I got to ask Rue before you give us your final thoughts there. Should Jamie Dimon be held accountable for putting in a short on Strategy and then going on national television and saying Strategy is going to go bankrupt? Is that not an attempt at market manipulation?
For sure, he should be. I would say so. What about you guys?
It's going to sound unpopular. I'm going to say no. That's very unpopular to say that.
Do this, man.
No, here's why. Here's the thing, right? If we're all understanding how the law works, and maybe this is really uncouth or whatever, unethical, but he understood how the law worked, right? He did. He understood how the law worked. There was nothing, there was no Clarity Act. There was none of that stuff, right? Like, there was nothing written saying that he couldn't do what he did. Was it not cool? Absolutely not cool. I do agree with that. But here's the positive side of it. Okay, so I'm me think, he's a big fan of Jamie. Mac's a big fan of Jamie Dimon. No, I'm not. I will state this: things like that allowed us to get to where we're at now. If you really look at it, we needed somebody. Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that I agree with what you're saying, but I think it wouldn't be hard to convince a judge that he knows his statements carry weight in the financial world, and when he puts in a short on a company, that shows intent to me. You put in a short, and then you go out and publicly announce that company's going to go bankrupt. I don't think it would be hard to convince.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if we look at it from the perspective, if you're going to go after Ripple, and they're technically not even a security, right? So there's that. But you want to go after some guy who committed technically a securities law violation. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You just quickly sway, right?
I mean, if they're going to get Jamie Dimon, they might as well get Elon for all the stuff he does. Tweeting out about meme coins and all of that.
I'll throw that in there. Absolutely. All right. What are your thoughts, Brew? What are your final thoughts on today's episode?
Well, definitely come check out the channel, guys, if you haven't already. We're making a push towards 10K subscribers. We're at like 8,500 or something like that. Yeah, I'm just loving to see what's going to happen in 2026. I'm glad to see my guy Max talk about Metallicus down there. Metallicus has their own lending platform in which they have tons of different coins. You couldn't have that in the U.S. before the Genius Act. Now you have it. They have Solana on there, their own coins on there, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Stellar, Hedera, you name it. Very, very excited about what they're doing over Metallicus over there. And they're compliant. So yeah, thank you for having me on, and pleasure to meet you, Jesse. And always, it's a fun time always, guys. You know that. So thanks.
Blockchain Buzz, baby. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be doing the regular Thursday stream for the Patreon, I believe, this week, unless you guys are busy.
Oh, let's do it.
Sounds
Cool.
good.
And Jesse, we got to hammer out those details, buddy. On our podcast, we got about another month or so. Right?
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Absolutely.
I'm all for it.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. So stick around for a sec, guys, if you don't mind, after we finish the live. And
Sure.
all right, guys. So thanks again for coming. Next week, be here 6 p.m. Actually, next week, sorry, is actually going to be an early episode, 1 p.m. Central on Saturday. Sometimes we have to accommodate for guests who are on the other side of the planet. So, so yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again for coming out, and God bless.